Hey YouTube, it's the Pied Piper.
Are you listening? Damn.
It's the Pied Piper.
It's my channel and I'm in your own.
Yeah.
Hey YouTube, it's the Pied Piper. This YouTube.
This YouTube thing, this YouTube situation. Episode 10. Title is Last Lesson. Remember, Brad and Amy have been talking, and through this whole thing he's been like teaching her different things, and so I think that's kind of what they mean by the last lesson, but I could be wrong. So I thought this episode was going to open in a flashback and I was going to be really perturbed, but it turned out it turned a corner and it wasn't really a flashback. So I'm like, okay, because I hate flashbacks, or at least so many. These flashbacks are getting a little bit ridiculous. Like we know from the last episode, stay in the light, which I guess nobody really stayed in the light, whatever. But Lacey has been forcing last rites on everyone. Anybody that she could find, she'd shoot him in the head. She gets into Project Noah's mansion or their compound. Dr. Lear is on the steps and he's got a gun and she's like, hey bro. For some reason she knows exactly who he is and what he did and how this is basically his fault. And they never really explain how she knows that. And I mean, yes, she does have the Lord on her side. I'm gonna need a little more for this show. Not that the Lord is not enough, but I need to understand how she knows everything, because right now she's the one character walking around who seems to know far too much, even when she's not part of a scene. Kind of weird. Dr. Lear is just like a big Debbie Downer at this point. He's like, woe is me, all of these people. Dr. Lear, you have known you've been wreaking havoc for at least 3 years. Please stop throwing yourself this pity party. Just cry me a river, build me a bridge, and get over it. Because you got work to do. And that's basically what Lacey tells him. She's like, you ain't got time to clock out. This is your bad. Now you need to clean up your mess. I thought it was great because she holds him accountable. And I love Lacey. I really do. For some reason, she starts giving this sermon that nobody signed up for. I am a Christian and I love the Lord and I'm a devout Christian, but we all know I have my issues with some organized religion. But one thing I hate, and I think this is why Christians get a bad rap, is that sometimes they just like put you in the middle of a sermon you never expected. You tell somebody hi and they're like, hi, how are you? And then you're saying fine and they're like, oh, of course you're better than fine. The Lord woke you up this morning. And it's like, oh, I didn't want all that. So she sees him there and then she just forces a sermon on him. And I'm like, Lacey, I love you, but STFU. You guys got things to do. This is going to sound really bad. But while she is talking to Dr. Lear and she's giving her sermon, all I keep thinking is a viral needs to come out of nowhere, jump down, land on your shoulders and bite you. This conversation is so unacceptable. And again, not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just like a forced sermon. It's like nobody wants to be forced into being preached to, and that's basically what just happened. Then this show does a time leap. Not a major time leap, and if you have read the trilogy, which I haven't, but from everything that I've gathered through researching and things about the trilogy, a lot of people were unhappy with the time jumps because they didn't know how they were going to play those off in a show, because in the book it's seamless, but in a show it's a little bit harder, especially because Amy kind of becomes a backseat character. I mean, she's still very much in mind, but I guess in certain parts of the trilogy, she actually is not the main character. So people were wondering how are they going to do that and make it so it was cohesive. And so it told the same story the books did. And so it's 30 days and it opens with Brad and Amy on this dock. And Brad is teaching Amy how to fish. Brad is not the most in tune with his emotions. And I don't know if he necessarily knows how to read the room properly, because basically telling Amy, you got to do this. He's teaching her lessons he wants her to learn. Again, it kind of goes back to the last lesson, which is the title of episode 10. He gets the fish. Amy's like, what's his name? And he's like, fish fillet. Like, he just is a jerk about it. I'm like, dang. But he's just not that soft guy, which is okay. I still love him. Then Amy's trying to build a fire and she can't get it started. And he tells Amy, oh, well, don't come in until you do it. Wow, he is a strict parent, but whatever. Oh, he loves survivor skills and she's got to have them. Then we discover that Amy, Brad, and Lila have been together in this little cabin, and I believe they're in Oregon? Yes, they are in Oregon right now. That's where their cabin is, and they're all eating fish at the table, and it's dinner time. And they're a nice little family, which is something that Amy hasn't had up till this point, so it's kind of nice for her to have this 30 days of just family. To me, I'm like, 30 days is not enough to get attached to the idea of family. So it was kind of interesting that they were so tight-knit. Amy is like, oh, I'm full, I'm done with my dinner, everybody's done with their dinner. And then Brad and Lila are like, we need to run to the store. And Amy's like, I'm tired, I just want to sleep. Lila agrees because she's like, you did have her up at the butt crack of dawn. She doesn't say that, but it was pretty early. So he's like, okay, and they let her stay home. But I'm thinking, why do you let her stay home? She's not a regular kid. She is a vampire kid who's like a vampire or something. I don't know, but I wouldn't be so cool with just leaving her alone, considering that she can basically talk to Fanning and whoever else she wants to in a nanosecond and could maybe be flipped into doing something. So it's kind of weird that they're just like, all right, deuces, Amy, we gotta bounce. But when they leave, though, we see Amy, and as she does what a lot of people with eating disorders actually do, which is hide her food in the napkin. And so she dumps it out, and we see that she didn't eat any of the fish. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, so Amy's not eating, which I don't think the virals eat either. How did Brad and Lila not realize she wasn't eating for 30 days? I guess if you don't pay close attention, you might not notice it, but you would think, given the fact that she's the only child with them, they might pay closer attention to her. So Brad and Lila take an exposition drive to basically just exposit the drive we didn't even need to see. It was not a necessary scene. All the scene does is tell us information that we would not see and haven't seen because of this 30-day stretch. I was kind of like side-eyeing that because I think it's like a cop-out when stories do that. It's obvious that this is all the only reason why they need to have this time away from Amy, even to basically exposit to the audience. America fell in literally like 30 days. I'm like, hey, so if a zombie outbreak happens or vampires or something, America doesn't stand a chance. 4 weeks, it's done. There's only like little pockets of people everywhere, but pretty much that's it. My notes are funny sometimes. Brad runs into Bob. Hey, Bob. Who the F is Bob? Why the F does Bob matter at this point? He's like literally nobody. And you will see he serves no purpose. There's just really no reason for Bob. Hey, Bob. Bob is like a survivalist, I guess. So he's just out there in the wilderness too. And then we have Brad and Lila go into the convenience store. And Lila's pumping gas or something, I believe. And Brad, well, before they do that, Brad and Lila go in and they hear that different cities have fallen and everything. But unfortunately or fortunately, Nevada seems good. Like nothing's happened in Nevada. No homicides or, virals, or at least no viral outbreak. Brad and Lila are kind of tossing around that information because they're thinking all the virals seem to have gone to their homes. And when they went to their home or their state, that state fell within a moment. And there's 12 of them, or at least 11 right now, because Amy's not on that mission. But there's at least 11 of them who are free and loose, at least as far as we know. I don't know who died or how many died when Lacey was given last rites. I don't know. Or maybe none did. I just really don't know who survived and who didn't. But whatever the case may be, they ended up basically going back to their hometowns and then just infecting everybody or killing everybody. Which is a bad move on their part, if you ask me, because I'm thinking to myself, you need blood. You can't kill everybody. You're not going to live forever if you don't have your blood. So you got to have some people that you have to have on tap or something. And then while Lila is pumping gas, out of nowhere, Ranger Joe or Ranger Viral jumps down from the roof or something, and he's just like prowling around like a cat or something. And he's staring at Lila, but he doesn't attack Lila. He makes zero moves to look at her like she's actually a viable source of nutrients. So I'd like to say, sorry to keep shifting, but it's hard to sit here for like an hour. But I think it's kind of interesting because Brad and Lila, when they talk to the convenience store guy, he gives the worst acting I've ever seen. I guess there had to be bad actors in it at some point. Maybe he's like a non-union actor. I don't know. He was like really bad. I guess every cast has one. Their cast has been pretty grade A, so it makes sense that there's like this one dude who can't act at all. He's a convenience store clerk. He's not important, trust me. And then we go to, I don't know if it's the CDC or where is it. We see Clark, and I think that's why I thought this show started off in a flashback, because we saw Clark, and I'm thinking Clark's neck was broken and he should be dead. So if we're seeing Clark, it must be a flashback, but it's not. Clark is alive and he's walking around on 2 legs and everything. Okay, he took Shauna up on her offer, but how could he do that and still be regular? Is he like her Renfield? Like, what's going on? Does she control him? I don't know. He doesn't combust in the sun, so I don't understand what's happening. But he's at this whole kind of camp where people seek refuge, but they have to check you over and make sure that you are not infected. And so they're giving this woman a hard time because she has a little baby girl, or not a baby girl, but probably like a toddler who is sick, and they're hoping that she's not viral, or they're suspecting that the girl might be viral viral, but Clark Richards looks into it and he's like, nah, she's good. He does have a lot of experience with viral, so it makes sense that he would know if somebody was infected. Then there's like this guy who's kind of a douche, and he's locked in this cage thing there, which I guess is doubling as maybe their prison or holding cell for people. So he sees this guy and he's like, hey, what's up with Belushi? Because I guess the guy looks kind of like Jim Belushi. But he's like, yeah, we need to like have him transported somewhere. Clark volunteers, and no, Clark, are you going to do what I think you're going to do? No. And I really wanted to be wrong, because Clark has shown that he had some morals, and we only got to see his little morals for this much time. So I'm like, no, Clark, don't do it. Clark's so weird. Now we see the very odd pairing of Lacey and Dr. Lear, who are a team now. And they are, I don't know if they're at the CDC, but they're somewhere official where Dr. Lear is trying to engineer an antiviral. So that they don't know for sure if it'll work, or he can't really do it because he doesn't have a viral to do it on. But then the guy where they're staying is like, you're in luck, we have a viral downstairs. You can use that blood. So I guess it was dead down there, and he's like, great, test dummy. It's like the game of Operation almost. I don't know if Lacey had this hairdo this whole time, but I'm really digging her hair on this episode. And then Dr. Lear and Clark are in communication, I guess, because Dr. Lear calls Clark, but Clark is acting really detached and not really like his self, which I'm thinking, how do you know what his self acts like, considering he's kind of a douche the whole time you've known him? But he's acting even douchier than normal, and they're talking on the phone, and Dr. Lear's, like, hey, are you okay? Like, how's it going? Then Clark ends up doing exactly what I think. He pulls up to what looks like an abandoned bar or something, and it's nighttime, and you see the prisoner or whatever in the back of the car he's driving, and guess who walks out of the abandoned bar? Shauna. So he's been feeding her villains. Okay. I mean, like, I guess it'd be worse. If Edward could do it in Twilight and just only kill bad people, then I guess Shauna can do that too. She did say that she needed someone to help keep her in check, and who better do that than Clark Richards? I guess he's her new Renfield, but their relationship is super weird to me. Like, not that it didn't have enough development, because we did get those flashbacks of how their relationship went, and we know he took her out on a little date. We know they have something together, or at least he cares for her. But it's so weird to me that he decided to take this up. It just doesn't make sense, because he was, when he was talking with Dr. Sykes, he was very much like, hey, we answered the call for our country and don't feel bad for getting this work done. So it's kind of weird that he would then backtrack completely and agree to do something that is important to his nature. Then we see that Brad and Lila are back together, and we know this because we see them getting it in, he's getting into that sweet, that nasty, that gushy stuff. And this show loves to do that. And it's not a bad thing. They actually meld adult themes in this story with this child very seamlessly. So it's a really good job. So kudos to... We will ignore Instagram right now. So kudos to the Passage creators and writers, and who were able to seamlessly mix, these adult themes with this show basically centering around this child. It's a very good even flow. But I'm like, everybody bangs in the heat of the moment, but I guess it's been like 30 days with no incidents, so it's like, why not bang one out? Dr. Lear banged his wife like right after she was injected with this stuff. You guys really seize the day. It's carpe diem in the Passage world all the time. Then we see Lila decide to dip on Brad. So you ship them sheets with Brad just so that you could Dear John him. Like, yeah, there's some people with the CDC that are trying to do some big things, or I don't even know if it was the CDC, but just some people, and she's like, I want to go do that. Isn't this how little Eva passed away because you chose a job over your family, and now you have this little second chance at a family, and you're now again choosing your job over your little family? Whatever. She notices what I noticed, though, that the Ranger viral did not attack her, so she's thinking that that somehow can help her, and so she's linked up with people that she feels like she could serve and help get something going to cure people, or at least get the outbreak under control. So I'm like, okay, it's an admirable idea, but since in the very beginning she gave Brad the green light to like end her relationship that she was in because she was going to get married to some other dude, and so it's like she's always wanted him. So it's like, now that you have him, you're like gonna dip. Kind of weird. This show is all about making sure that you get your rocks off at least one good time before you're abandoned, because that's exactly what's happened. You have seen all the major players except for Tim Fanning get a little action. Well, Tim Fanning did get a little action with Elizabeth Lear, but I just feel like that wasn't on screen, but like everybody else's has been on screen. So Lila is saying goodbye to Amy, and this is where my criticism, or my 2 cents, 10 cents comes in. I know that I'm supposed to feel like sad because Lila is leaving Amy and they've been so close, yada yada yada, but I don't. I'm almost relieved that Lila decides to leave, because she just, to me, was a character that could have been eliminated sooner. She did serve a purpose, but right now it's just not. Her connection with Amy is not as upfront, in your face, and deep as the one that Brad has with Amy, and that connection. So I think it's kind of weird that they really tried hard to make it seem like a family unit when ultimately it just never felt that way. So Amy looks like she's about to cry, or she's crying when Lila's saying goodbye, but to me, I'm just thinking, okay, leave. Like, you could have left a long time ago. I wouldn't have blinked an eye. The show would not have been any worse had she taken off, in my opinion. So then we have Amy narrating again, and it kind of pops in, and she's talking about something. I don't like all that narration. I feel like if you do a little bit in the very beginning of the show or the episode, I understand, but to sprinkle it in just like random places for no real reason other than for exposition's sake, it just seems odd to me. So, and Amy has some more narration. She's talking about, basically how everything ended and how everything worked, and then now their little family of 3 went to 2, and it was like, I saw that happen. You don't need to narrate and tell me that happened. So then we have Dr. Lear is down with that viral that was dead, so that he can try to make this antiviral. And of course, who pops into his head? Tim Fanning. Why not? He's got to visit his friend. Tim's been busy. And it's so funny because Tim says something that I'm like, I understand. People in Nebraska eat a lot of corn. And I don't know if that's true or not. It's just one of those things that gets said. So it's probably a stereotype, and I apologize to any Nebraskans who might think that I'm being judgmental. I'm not. It's for humor's sake. But Tim Fanning is like, I kind of went a little crazy in Nebraska, and I'm thinking, I understand cornfields, all that corn. You got to do something to break up the body. And then, Dr. Lear is like, but you're just making all these virals, and why are you doing this? And Tim Fanning says the best line ever, in my opinion. He's like, I don't know. Why does anybody have kids? And it's so funny. I'm like, okay. Because they're all connected to him. So I'm like, oh, that's pretty witty. He has some great retorts, and I just really like his personality. And then Brad is an absolute tiger dad, because we flash to him and Amy, and now they're a family of 2, and Amy's narration helps us realize that, even though it's not necessary because we see it. We see it in her archery. Okay. Everybody knows I like The Walking Dead. I loved it so much whenever it first came on, and even though they had some pretty lackluster seasons, especially the whole Negan thing, I was like, wait, in this war? You guys don't even know what meaning is all out war. None of you is doing anything more like, but I digress. So in The Walking Dead, they built up to not using guns anymore because obviously ammo and everything runs low once, years and years and years have gone by. But it's been 30 days, maybe 45 by the time he's still working with her doing archery. And I'm thinking, Brad, there's still guns. Use those. Teach her how to shoot a gun until you have to do archery. I don't think this bow and arrow shtick is for everybody. She's not Robin Hood. They still have bullets, and I'm sure Brad, with all his skills, knows how to make a bullet. I don't know. He seems to me the type of guy who's very resourceful. Then Brad is telling Amy something that's so sweet, and because Amy's getting frustrated about learning all this stuff, and he was talking to her and saying like, I'm not always going to be around, and I have to teach you this stuff because you're going to need to know this, and you're going to be around a lot longer than I will be. And my heart started bleeding. It felt like it did because it's so sad. I was like, Brad, don't talk about not being there. I don't want to know that. It's so sweet because Brad is braiding Amy's hair. And I just gotta say, bravo on finally changing her little buns into actual hairstyle. Not that the buns weren't cute for her age, but I was like, she's rocking that like every day for the last several months. But he's braiding her hair. And I gotta say, he did a better job than I ever have done braiding hair. Like French braiding hair. I was like, he's a pro. Like, did Lila teach him that, or is this part of his repertoire? Like, this dude is a jack of all trades. So he's braiding her hair. It looks great. But while he's doing it, I'm thinking to myself, oh, Mark Paul Gosselaar, Zach Morris, Brad Mulgast. I fall a little more in love every time I see him do something like that. I don't know what it is about a man who's like taking care of business that is just very attractive. And it doesn't hurt that he's also Zach Morris and just everything. And then Brad does tell Amy that when he's scared, he likes to gather facts. You know what's so funny is that I'm like that too. Whenever I'm having emotions, especially fear and anger, which to me are really unproductive emotions because people don't usually make the best decisions when those emotions hit them. So I'm very logical and always able to override certain emotions with logic. So to me, I was like, oh, cool. I do the same thing. He tells Amy just the facts are she's amazing and she's the bravest person he knows, and he's so inspirational. Then we see Clark and Shauna, and Clark again is bringing her a little midnight snack, and they get into this lover's quarrel because, I don't know, it's been a rough 30 days. He hasn't been doing what she thought he would do, or he's not loving her like she thought she'd be loved. I don't know, but they're in this lover's spat. He says some things and she says some things, and I'm just like, Their relationship is so weird. I would say that they're having trouble in paradise, but considering this is like a vampire, almost post-apocalyptic sort of story, I think they're having trouble in hell. I don't know. Trouble in purgatory? Whatever. They're just having trouble. And so they're not communicating like they should. And they have this argument. And then he leaves and she's just in there. We learn, though, that Clark is immortal. I never say that word right. It's immortal. But Clark is immortal. So I don't know what they are capable of doing to regular humans that don't turn them into virals but make them immortal. I don't know. I'm hoping that we get an answer to that, or maybe it's in the trilogy. I'm not wholly sure, but for what it's worth, Clark is going to be around for a very long time, I guess. And then we have another glimpse into Amy and Fanning's relationship, and he visits her once again in her head, and we see what happened to Bob. Like I said, Bob wasn't important because Fanning just totally is trying to entice Amy and get her to feed by drawing blood on Bob, and Amy's like, no. She's very staunchly against it. Doesn't want to do it. And I don't know what happens if they don't feed. Like, is she going to deteriorate or die? I don't know. But he's trying to entice her to feed. And they have this very weird antagonistic relationship. And I don't know if you remember or if I even mentioned it, but in the previous episode, it looked like when Amy was separated from Lila and Brad, like Fanning ends up coming up to her and he's actually like choking the life out of her. But then she somehow projects into his mind a sight of the future or something, or maybe she's having a prophetic vision. Whatever it is, he sees it and sees that for whatever reason, Amy is his saving grace. And in the vision, she cuts her hand and she feeds Fanning her blood. And I'm thinking, how did that happen? I don't know. Whatever it did, it freaked Fanning out enough to be like, oh, I don't want any part of this girl. So they have this weird antagonist relationship. So she just says she does not want to feed from Bob, but then you think that that's all in her head, but then she gets up and goes to the window and Fanning's just like standing out there chilling. I'm like, Fanning, you've just been stalking Amy this whole time? And don't you have work to do? Where are all your virals? Then I just keep thinking though, like, okay, I get that Amy's not eating food anymore, but it can't be healthy for her not to be drinking blood. So I'm just like, isn't there a way to tap Bob like a keg and then just, lift and drink a little, let him go on his merry way, then tap him again and then drink a little? Like, it's so weird. I don't know if Bob's gonna make it. Because Fanning's just like kicking it outside the cabin and I'm thinking, like, don't you have stuff to do? And I don't think it was at night that he was hanging out there. But I'm like, where does he go during the day? So many questions and not enough answers. And I get it, it's supposed to be suspenseful, but I don't like surprises. And then we go back to the Dr. Lear and Lacey odd couple / even Lacey makes the reference to them being Bert and Ernie. Yep, that's the odd couple. Even though I gotta say Bert and Ernie were a little bit better a couple, or a coupling that made sense. But Dr. Lear is like, he thinks he engineered some form of an antiviral, but he doesn't want to try it on people, which makes sense. He's a little bit PTSDing over the whole Project Noah thing went way bust. So I'm sure he doesn't want this to go way left, but he doesn't want to try it on just any old human and risk unforeseen consequences. I love the Bible. I really do. I love the Bible. I love the Lord. But once again, we have stumbled into Lacey's church. And I'm like, Lacey lit off of these sporadic sermons. I don't know. It's like weird. And I just keep thinking that Dr. Lear should slap her. She's being ridiculous. Slap her. Tell her that you did not want this conversation. You feel like you're bamboozled and led into this conversation when you didn't want to be in it. We go back to the cabin. Bob is outside and I guess he's been bitten, which makes sense considering Fanning did try to entice Amy with Bob. So the convenience store people run over to Brad's cabin and they're in there and I'm like, why do you trust the convenience store people? So far all you know is that they own the convenience store, that you've only been around for 30 days. So it's not like you have this big long relationship. 30 days, way too long to be like, watch Amy while I go outside and talk to, what about Bob? Viral Bob. But he leaves them in there with Amy. Then literally a couple of seconds later, like you hear some noise, and then Brad is there and he's been bitten. Somebody done took a bite out of Brad. He's been bitten and I'm thinking, did Bob do that? Was it fair? I thought he killed Bob. They were far enough away for him to get a clean headshot. What happened? And of course, Amy is like in turmoil because that's her dad for all intents and purposes. And in this episode, we finally get to hear them say I love you to each other. So it really sucks that he's bitten. But we do know that Lila left the antiviral is in the cabin with them. I feel like it doesn't really matter, but of course the convenience store people are freaking out because they're basically just extras because we need people to die and we don't want it to be one of the main characters. So throw in some extras we don't care about who act badly. And then we go back to where Lacey and Dr. Lear are. And they're having this meeting because Dr. Lear is allegedly, he's made the antiviral, which hasn't been tested on anybody, but the guy there is like, dude, don't say anything about Project Noah. They find out you were there, who knows what will happen. So there's this meeting, and it's like China, Russia, I think India, just all these different countries are there, and they're saying, you gotta get this under control. It's in America right now, but God only knows what's gonna happen. And so they're like, we really don't know what else to do, can't really wait around, which they're right, this could spread a lot. So that guy is like, we just need distribution of the antiviral, but Dr. Lear has found one, and they're not willing to hear him out. So then all of the different screens start shutting out, and then the UK tells them, dude, sorry. And they're like, watch your six. I didn't really know what that meant at first. I was only happy that a Russian and a British person were there because I love Russian accents and British accents, and I got the best of both worlds. And then we discovered that the CDC is gone. There's no more CDC. And I'm like, dang, what happened? Did they do The Walking Dead and blow it up because of all the stuff in there? Who knows? CDC is gone, wiped out. There's nobody. Nobody's coming for Brad and Amy. Nobody's coming for Dr. Lear and Lacey. Gone. And that's only one other option. None of those other countries want what America has. So guess what they need to do? It's time to fire the nukes and get America wiped out completely. Clark and Shauna are still having their lovers swirl. Clark is mad because I guess there's been some deaths in Nevada, and Clark is like, so you were mad at me, and so because you were mad you decided to go get blood wasted? And she's like, I didn't do anything. I think that was Martinez. And I'm like, so there's two of you in Nevada? Whatever. But they talk and work it out, and they of course have this odd codependent relationship, and they're gonna do the do. They're gonna bang one out because that's what this episode does when things get too stressful. Bang one out. So they're gonna do that. This love he had for Dr. Sykes did not go very deep because he has been probably all over Shauna since the moment Dr. Sykes was out of existence. We go back to the cabin, and I'm thinking to myself, Amy, save Brad. Whatever Shauna or Dr. Tim Fanning knows about, do it to Brad so that he can be your one and he doesn't have to die and he can be alive forever. Please do it. The convenience store people are ready to shoot him in the head and as he's going to be viral. And Amy, of course, wants no part of that. She's like, leave my agent alone. And I'm just like, yes, she's going to save him. And Amy does help, sort of. If help is also a squeeze juice, which she turns the convenience store people into because her eyes get all viral and she goes in for the kill. And literally just So she goes in for the kill. She does what, virals are supposed to do, which is feed. And her trigger was just trying to protect Brad. But Brad, fading in and out of consciousness, sees her do it. She, I think she's probably mortified. But at the same time, she's like, oh, I haven't eaten in forever. And fish wasn't doing it. So now, thank you, convenience store guy 1 and convenience store girl 2, for being the extras that I get to eat. So then Amy gives Brad the antidote. But we see that in a very hazy way because he's going through it while she's doing that. And she does. She helps him and everything. Amy is so mature for her 10 years old. And then we go back to where Dr. Lear and Lacey are, and Dr. Lear decides to try the antiviral on himself. And he looks at it by saying to Lacey, look, Tim Fanning's going to be around for a long time. So I'm guessing he knows that he is immortal. And he's like, I need to be around just as long to be able to do what I need to do. So I believe he's thinking if he gives himself whatever it was, he'll also be immortal so that he can fight Tim Fanning eventually. So now, Amy writes the agent Brad a sweet little letter. She leaves him her book. And I'm like, oh, I love it when a story goes full circle and doesn't abandon certain things that it needed to. It's great. So she writes him the note. She just basically says, I didn't want you to see me like that, or be afraid of me, or see me as a monster, and that's why I can't stay, and taught me everything I need to know. And so she leaves. What about your promise, Amy? You promised to not ever leave him, and you made him promise not to leave you, and you just left. That's the first time she's broken that promise, and she was adamant about him not breaking it. So I'm a little bit upset that she broke it, but I get why she had to. She was feeling bad, she felt guilty. She just ate some people. She's also feeling bad because he saw her do it, so she doesn't want him afraid of her. It's the one person she has. We see America get nuked. I guess China, Russia, and the UK were serious. They're like, no more America. You guys are breeding vampires. So they nuke it. Apparently a lot of people don't die from that though, because we go forward 97 years. years. And this is in the trilogy, the 97-year gap. And we see some virals that are feeding. Then we see somebody who's in a hooded little cloak type thing come up, flings an arrow at the viral. It dies or is on the ground or whatever. It's incapacitated on some level. And then the person takes off their hood and we discover it's Amy. Let me just say, the braids that she is rocking in that episode, I'm like, oh, nice hair, Amy. Good job. I don't know who you got to do your hair in the end of the world, but I dig the braids. And so, yeah, I guess that's how they address the time skip. They do it. And they also, I think, leave themselves open by doing it this way is because they have a little more wiggle room because now it's technically that 97-year gap. And we discover that Amy's been alone this whole time. This whole 97 years, she's just been by herself. Now we're going to come to my input on this episode. And I'm sorry that this is a long video. As you're watching it, just know I tried to make it as short as possible. I really did. I do a lot for these recaps, just so you know. Archery ended up coming in handy after all for Amy. A couple things, and I'm going to read from my notes because I had a couple issues with this last episode. It's not going to destroy me loving the show and wanting it to come back for another season, but they are criticisms. So if you felt the same way, leave it in the comments, or if you felt differently, leave it in the comments. Let's have an intelligent, conversation about it. One of the things, or most of the things I thought about this finale is less is more sometimes. I feel like a lot of these little things were filler and just things to stretch the runtime, but not significant enough to warrant having a 2-hour finale. And not that if a 2-hour finale was horrible or hard to get through, like I said, I love this show, like to death. I'm going to be waiting. I'm going to be looking through online to see exactly if it gets canceled, what's going to happen. I'm going to be a part of that because I love this show, but less is more sometimes. And I get what they were trying to do by doing it this way because a lot of people had criticisms as far as the book and how closely or not at all that it matched the show. And there's always going to be people who are upset about that. I love the multicultural cast. As much as I like that they mixed the two, I felt like when all was said and done, it was kind of a letdown at the very end. I mean, yes, we see Amy and we know that she's been by herself for 97 years. We see her banging braids and I'm like, yes, girl. She can find a hairstylist anywhere, apparently. If you can find one in the apocalypse, what can't you do? But it just felt anticlimactic, and I thought that they could have started the next season full force if they would have left more of a suspenseful end. Because right now, it's not very suspenseful. I mean, at the very end, Amy does say, like, I think I'd know if you died. And I don't necessarily think she's talking about the agent. I think she might be talking about Tim Fanning. I'm not wholly sure, though, and I guess we will find out in due time. It doesn't really matter to me, because either way, this story is a great one, but it just felt like it was weighed down by a lot of stuff that didn't necessarily happen or need to happen. Pretty much they could have summed up what happened with even Clark and Shauna or Dr. Lear and Lacey in a very short window of time. And they did kick Lila to the curb pretty quickly in this episode, but I just feel like it left a lot of holes doing it this way, like plot holes that I don't know if they're going to be filled. Like, we still don't know what happened to Director Gilder. Did he die? And like I said, I'm going to have to go back and watch it because I'm like, did anybody eat him? And why did I miss it? Was I staring at Anthony Carter's chest and bulging biceps? I don't know. Something happened and I missed it because I don't know where he is. And we don't know if Renfield survived when he was in, 4B. We know that it blew up, but all the other virals got out. So maybe they could have gotten them out. I don't know. And Shauna did say that she knew that Dr. Sykes had passed away. She said that to Clark Richards, but I think she might have just said that because she wanted him to be hers. I think if I had read the trilogy, I might be unsatisfied with this end. Not necessarily because of any bad acting or anything, but I just feel like there was something missing, like it kind of like tapered. The very first episode of the finale was so suspenseful and so like heart racing and gut wrenching, and then you have this one and it just kind of like evened it out. So it took that high that if you leave it there, people are gonna flock to the next episode when it comes back on. But to send it on this high and then just kind of like rock you off with like, for 97 years, Amy roamed the earth. It's kind of like, whoa. Whatever. I feel like this episode left a lot of questions. We don't know what happened to Director Gilder. Did anyone ever rip off his mustache? Like, what happened? Did Carter die for good when he got shot that last time? Was that the final shot? Was it a headshot? Did he run off? Like, what happened to him? I feel like they did so much to build up and make us sympathetic to him, and then like we just don't even see what really actually went down. So we might see that in the next season, but I don't want to see flashbacks. So I'm really hoping they ease up on the flashbacks flashbacks, and I don't think they're going to if there's so much stuff that we still don't know about the main characters. Okay, so we do know that Clark Richards is immortal because Shauna said that. So whatever she did to him, he's immortal. But was Renfield immortal? And is Brad, now that he got the antiviral? And what about Lila? She got it too, and that one viral didn't eat her. So is she immortal now? And what about Dr. Lear? Because he made his own little antidote and injected himself too. And he said he'd be around to face off with Tim Fanning. So is he immortal also? It's very curious, and it left a lot unanswered. Everybody was so worried about the virals and all these other countries. They were worried and they wanted to nuke America because of this outbreak. Okay, so you nuked America, and as we saw from Amy going 97 years into the future, that there are still virals in America. But Russia is a long walk from America, and so is the UK and China. And TSA is still a thing, right? I mean, if America fell, how would the virals ever get outside of America to progress this? Because remember, when they're bitten, it takes them like pretty much like 5 seconds. They turn immediately. It maybe is like a minute, 2 minutes. It's not very long. I don't think that they would have got on a plane very successfully. And even if they got on a plane, I don't see them leaving anybody alive long enough to let the actual pilot, usher them to another country. So really, how could this actually spread outside of America? We did have the one 250-year-old guy in Bolivia, but we know that they killed him after he bit Tim Fanning. So it's like, what's the deal? Like, what happened? Why would nuking America help or not help? Realistically, the virus itself is contained to America, because I haven't seen any of these virals be able to fly or do anything that makes me believe that they could get to another country successfully. Like, maybe they could walk to Canada if somebody's in one of the states where there's a border for Canada. Maybe they could get into Mexico, but still, even once they get to Canada and Mexico, how would it get out of those countries? Because they have to be flown somewhere, and all of the people who are original are all very viral. Shauna's the only one that looks sort of decent, and then there's Amy, but she's not changing people. She's far too small to be able to pilot a plane. So how do they get to another country? It's hard to walk to Russia. I mean, they gotta walk in oceans and stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they can drown. I don't know. And the virals are super noticeable, so there's no way they could have gotten out of America to infiltrate any other country. So as far as nuking America, I don't really understand why that happened or how it would help. Let's say a viral gets lucky enough to get into a plane and then goes viral. They don't seem to have any willpower to not bite people. So they're going to kill everybody, and then they won't get to another country. So it's weird. I think I've said enough, and my voice is getting so weird. So I'm about to call this a done deal. I'm super excited still for The Passage. I love the show. What do you think of the show? Have you been watching all of the episodes? Did you catch the finale? What did you think of the finale? Are you thinking some of the things that I'm thinking? Where's your head at? Ultimately, I give this whole show an A-. And I'm not saying it's A+, only because of their severe use of narration and flashbacks as exposition. I think that they could have done some great character building if they stepped away from those crutches. However, it did not take away from my enjoyment of the show, and I love it, and it's got a really diverse cast. But part of me is starting to see it kind of get watered down because they've killed off Dr. Sykes. We don't know where Anthony Carter is. We still have Amy. We may have Lacey still. I don't know. 97 years into the future, I'm not sure Lacey still even exists. So, like, subscribe, comment, share.
Share any way you can.
Smoke signal, Morse code,
carrier pigeon, telegraph,
2 cans of string.
beeper, pager, they still got pager, snail mail. Tell somebody that knows somebody that knew somebody that knows somebody that, hey, Piper has a new baby.
Are you listening?